The silent arrival of the Galactic Council's central station floated in the heart of neutral space, a shining ring of metal and light that had seen centuries of diplomacy, trade, and war. On this day, the station was calm, filled with the usual traffic of cargo haulers, luxury liners, and patrol cruisers. Then the alarms began to sound. At first, the Council's security teams thought it was a simple sensor glitch. Long-range scans had detected an object entering from deep space, moving at a steady but unstoppable speed. No identification code, no transponder signal, no communication at all. It was not on any registry of known ships. The first images were grainy, taken from distant patrol drones, but the shape was unmistakable. Long, angular, bristling with strange weapon mounts, and far larger than any vessel the Council currently operated. In the Council's observation deck, delegates from dozens of species gathered to watch the holographic projection. Some spoke. In worried tones, others dismissed it as a pirate super freighter, or perhaps an abandoned war relic drifting through space. But as the object drew closer, its outline grew sharper. It was no drifting wreck. It moved with precision. Its engines were silent to the scanners, as if bending the laws of known propulsion. It had no escort, no fleet, yet it carried the presence of a war armada. The station's commander, a four-eyed Thari named Velcor, ordered all outer defense platforms to full readiness. Across the chamber, a veteran Zoreth admiral narrowed his eyes, his scales twitching with unease. "I've seen that silhouette before," he muttered, "but it cannot be." They were gone. No one paid much attention to him yet. The object crossed into visual range, and for the first time, the station's main viewport showed it with clarity. The ship's black hull reflected almost no light, its surface broken by strange silver patterns, markings that seemed more like scars than decoration. Near the bow, etched into the armor, was a faded emblem, a blue sphere surrounded by 13 small stars. The emblem matched one that the oldest Council archives carried from a time long past, a time when Earth still stood. A hush fell over the deck as the reality began to sink in. This was no pirate, no drifting relic. It was a warship, and it was human. Velcor's voice was steady but tense as he addressed the comm officers. "Hail them now." Multiple signals were sent, standard greetings, trade languages, emergency channels. The ship did not respond. Instead, it continued its slow, deliberate approach toward the Council's station, its path unwavering. Some delegates began to panic. The warship was large enough to destroy the station with a single strike if its weapons matched its size. Others argued that if humans still existed, they were too few to challenge the Council. After all, Earth had been destroyed centuries ago during the border wars. But the old Zoreth admiral shook his head. "You don't understand," he said quietly. "If that ship is what I think it is, they are not here to bargain." The warship's massive frame passed between the station and its primary sun, casting the observation deck into shadow. Its sheer size made the surrounding patrol ships look like toys. Every scanner on the station was locked on it, yet none could penetrate its shielding. It was as if the vessel was wrapped in layers of unknown technology, refusing to give away any weakness. Then, without warning, a signal pinged directly into the Council's secure channel, bypassing every firewall and encryption protocol. The comm officer gasped. "It's an old code. Pre-Council encryption. It matches Earth's last military cipher." Delegates exchanged nervous glances. The station's speakers crackled, and a single voice spoke in perfect galactic common. "We have come for answers." The voice was calm, controlled, but it carried a weight that silenced the entire chamber. The words were not a request, but a statement. Velcor demanded to know their identity. There was no reply. The warship simply kept moving, drawing closer to the docking perimeter. In the war room, Council generals debated whether to open fire. Some argued it was the only way to protect the station. Others feared that firing might be the exact trap the humans wanted. Still, the fact remained. No one knew the warships. True strength. Old war records described human ships as fast, unpredictable, and terrifying in close combat. And this one was far beyond anything from those records. The blockade was formed. A dozen heavy cruisers moving into a defensive wall between the station and the warship. Their weapons charged, their shields raised. The warship slowed, but did not stop. Its engines flared once, and the massive ship glided forward, closing the distance meter by meter in the observation deck. The delegates could feel the tension rising. Every heartbeat seemed louder, every breath heavier. The old Zoroth admiral whispered, almost to himself, "It begins again." As the warship reached the edge of the blockade, its weapons remained cold, its shield still shimmering with quiet energy. Then the Council's main display lit up with a new image, the warship's emblem, now glowing bright blue, and beneath it, in simple galactic common letters, "Earth does not forget." Asterisk. Message: the blockade ships held their ground, weapons locked on the black warship. The tension in the Council's command deck was so thick it felt like the air itself was pressing down on everyone. The warship hovered just outside the firing line, silent, its hull absorbing the faint starlight like a shadow made of metal. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the secure communication channel lit up again. The voice returned, calm, deep, and carrying an edge of authority. "This is the warship Dauntless, representing the people of Earth and all her colonies." The words rolled across the chamber like thunder. Many of the younger delegates glanced at one another in confusion. They had never heard of Earth outside of old history lessons. But the veterans knew the name well. Earth, the cradle of the Deathworlders, the planet whose soldiers fought wars no one else dared to fight. A planet the Council believed had been wiped clean centuries ago. Velkor's throat tightened as he answered, his voice firm. "This is the Galactic Council. Neutral territory under protected status. Identify your intentions." The reply came instantly. Without hesitation, "We have come for answers." The human voice repeated, "And we will not leave without them." A council chamber erupted into whispers. Some alien delegates shouted demands to detain the ship immediately. Others insisted on opening a peaceful dialogue. But deep inside, they all knew the warship had breached their encrypted systems effortlessly. If it could do that, what else could it do? The massive screens in the chamber suddenly flickered and changed. Without permission, the Dauntless was streaming its own feed directly into the Council's core systems. It showed footage, grainy and old, but clear enough to sting. The images were of alien fleets bombarding cities on a blue-green planet. Human cities. Explosions rippled across continents. Oceans boiled under orbital strikes, and people ran through streets in chaos. The feed was silent, except for the sound of a steady human heartbeat. Then, over the images, the voice spoke again. "Your archives call this the Border Wars. Your records say Earth fell, and the humans scattered. But our records are different." The feed shifted, showing hidden colonies on barren worlds, domed cities built into asteroids, and warships under construction in secret shipyards. Humans in dark uniforms walked the decks, their eyes cold, their movements precise. "We did not vanish," the voice said. "We adapted, we endured, and we remember." Velkor felt the weight of every eye in the chamber. Some delegates avoided his gaze. Others stared at the screen as if seeing ghosts. The old Zoroth admiral leaned forward, his voice low but clear. "They've returned, and they're not here for peace treaties." The Dauntless continued its slow advance toward the station's perimeter. Its approach was deliberate, almost daring the blockade to open fire. Every captain in the blockade fleet knew one thing: if they fired first, the humans would respond, and no one could predict the scale of that response. One of the Council generals, a thick-plated Varn named Aras, slammed his clawed fist onto the table. "They come here with threats, with stolen access to our systems. We should strike now before it's too late." Velcor turned to him sharply. "And if we fail? If that ship survives our attack? What message will that send to the rest of the galaxy?" The human voice cut through the argument. "You have 3 options," it said. "You can answer our questions. You can ignore us and hope we go away. Or you can fire and begin a war you will not win." The bluntness of the words froze the room. The humans were not bluffing. They believed every word they said. On the main display, the warship's hull markings began to glow faintly. Not just the Earth emblem. Other symbols appeared, etched into the armor, some of the councils. Military historians recognized them. The insignias of colonies thought long lost, names like Titan Base, New Horizon, and Vega Prime. Each one was a ghost from a war no one dared speak about. Velcor took a slow breath. "What answers do you seek?" he asked. The human voice didn't hesitate. "Why you abandoned our frontier worlds to the raiders. Why you declared Earth's people extinct when you knew survivors remained. And why you have hidden the truth for centuries." The council chamber went utterly silent. Every delegate knew these were dangerous accusations. Some of them were true. Some of them were worse than the humans realized. Before anyone could answer, a sharp alarm echoed through the deck. The blockade commander's voice crackled over the comms. "Sir, the Dauntless just released. Something hundreds of small objects. They're moving toward us fast." The chamber erupted in chaos. Delegates shouted, generals barked orders. And Velcor's eyes locked on the tactical screen. The objects weren't weapons. They were drones, dozens, then hundreds, each darting between blockade ships, attaching to their hulls, and shutting down their weapon systems in seconds. No explosions, no casualties, just silence. The humans had disarmed an entire blockade in under a minute, without firing a single shot. As the last blockade ship drifted powerless, the human voice returned. "We will dock now," it said, calm and final, "and you will listen." The test of fire the Dauntless moved through the powerless blockade. Like a predator swimming through a school of stunned fish, every alien captain aboard those disabled ships could only watch as the black hole passed by, close enough to scrape their shields. The drones that had silenced them returned to the warship. In neat, perfect formations, like a swarm obeying a single mind. No one fired, no one dared. In the council's command deck, Velcor stood frozen, his eyes fixed on the display. The old Zoroth admiral leaned on the railing, his claws gripping the metal. "They're showing restraint," he said quietly. "This is a warning, not an attack." But his voice carried no comfort, only the weight of someone who had seen such warnings before. The warship stopped just outside the docking perimeter. For a moment, it seemed as if the humans were prepared to board. Then the unexpected happened. From the Dauntless's forward weapon knots, bright blue lights flickered to life. Every sensor in the station screamed. The energy readings were off the charts, far beyond any weapon in the Council's database. "Shields up," barked a Council general. The station's defense grid snapped to life. Shimmering around the massive ring structure, patrol ships scrambled in panic, pushing their engines to maximum thrust to get into defensive positions. And still, the human ship did not fire. Instead, it released a narrow beam of light, hitting one of the station's uninhabited cargo satellites. In less than a second, the satellite was gone. Not destroyed in an explosion, not torn apart. Gone, completely vaporized, reduced to particles too small to detect. Gasps filled the command deck. That was no bluff. The humans could erase anything they wanted, without warning, without waste. The human voice returned, calm but sharper now. "We will not fire on the innocent," it said, "but do not test us again." Then the Dauntless began transmitting a new data stream directly to the Council's core systems. The encryption was so advanced that even the station's AI had no way to block it. The stream contained schematics, detailed blueprints of the Dauntless, but the files weren't for construction or replication. They were a display of power, showing systems so alien to the Council's technology that it was like comparing stone tools to quantum forges. One section caught Velkor's eye. The warship's armor was not metal. It was a living composite, something that repaired itself instantly. Another section revealed its shield generators could bend not only energy but physical matter, meaning no known projectile could touch it. Some delegates refused to believe what they were seeing. "It's impossible," a learned ambassador hissed. "They're lying." But the old Zorath admiral shook his head. "No," he said. "I fought against smaller ships like this once. They were unstoppable." Velkor tried to steady his voice. "What is it you hope to achieve by this?" The answer came swiftly. "To ensure you never again ignore the Deathworlders." The voice said, "To make certain no human world is left unguarded, and to remind you, we are still here." Then, without warning, the blockade's powerless cruisers lit up one by one. Their systems came back online, their weapons and engines restored. The drones returned to the Dauntless and disappeared into its armored flanks. It was as if the humans were saying, "We can take your power away, and we can give it back whenever we choose." In the observation deck, whispers turned to fearful silence. Every alien there understood the message. The humans had just demonstrated that they could disable and re-enable the Council's military at will. Without a single casualty, without a single wasted shot, the warship then inched closer to the docking gates. Security forces gathered inside, armed with stun rifles, heavy shields, and combat drones. But deep down, they all knew, if the humans truly wanted to take the station, no amount of security would stop them. As the Dauntless slowed to a final halt, its engines dimmed, the massive docking clamps locked into place with a deep metallic thud. Then the main comms channel opened again. "This is your final test," the human voice said. "Decide now, will you speak with us or force us to speak through action?" The chamber was silent. Velkor's eyes swept across the rows of delegates, some pale, some trembling, some staring in open defiance. And then, from the shadows of the observation deck, the old Zorath admiral spoke. "If we refuse, they won't destroy us," he said, his voice grim. "They'll make us wish we had destroyed ourselves first." The Dauntless waited, silent, unblinking. The galaxy's most powerful station stood at the edge of a choice that could rewrite history. Asterisk. The human captain, the massive docking doors of the Dauntless began to open. Metal groaned, lights shifted, and an eerie white mist poured out into the station's docking bay. The station's security teams, dressed in heavy armor and holding charged stun rifles, lined up in tight formation. Their leaders barked orders, but no amount of training could hide the nervous tremors in their movements. From the mist, a single figure emerged, tall, broad-shouldered, walking with the slow, deliberate pace of someone who knew no one here could stop him. He wore black battle armor that seemed to drink in the light. On his chest was the same faded blue sphere emblem, Earth, surrounded by 13 stars. The helmet concealed his face, but glowing strips along the visor pulsed in sync with his breathing. He stopped at the edge of the security line. The visor tilted slightly, scanning the soldiers in silence. Then the helmet retracted with a faint hiss, revealing a human face, scarred, weathered, and carrying eyes that burned with something. Between rage and patience, when he spoke, his voice carried through the docking bay without the need for amplification. "I am Captain Rhys Kalen, commander of the Dauntless, representative of Earth and her surviving colonies." The name alone sent a ripple through the council officials present. Some recognized it from intelligence reports. A ghost name whispered. In pirate space, others had never heard it, but felt the weight it carried. Velkor stepped forward cautiously, "This station is neutral ground," he said. "Your actions have caused great alarm among the Council. Explain your purpose here." Reese's gaze did not waver. "We came to finish what you abandoned," he said, his voice low but cutting through the air like a blade. Without asking permission, the captain gestured to a small cylindrical device in his hand. With a twist, it projected a hologram into the air, a sprawling map of the galaxy, dotted. With hundreds of stars, certain systems glowed red. "These," Reese said, pointing, "are human colonies you left to burn during the border wars. Worlds you labeled strategically unimportant." Velkor's mandibles tightened. "That war was long before our time," he replied. "The Council did what it could." "You did nothing," Reese interrupted. "You watched raiders tear apart our people. You called us extinct. But we lived, we fought. And while you sat in this ring of light and law, we built in the dark." His words echoed off the steel walls, and even the armed guards shifted uneasily. The captain turned to face the delegates who had gathered at the far end of the bay. "I am not here to negotiate as a supplicant," he continued. "I am here as an equal, or as an enemy. The choice is yours." The bay doors to the council chamber opened, and Reese began to walk forward. Two of his crew followed. One, a woman with cybernetic eyes that glowed faint gold, scanning everything around her. The other, a towering man in heavier armor, his helmet sealed, carrying what looked like an ancient human battle standard, a flag of deep blue with a fractured Earth at its center. Asterisk, every step they took toward the chamber felt heavier, as if the air itself thickened. The alien delegates, who had always stood taller and prouder in the presence of outsiders, now looked smaller. Some avoided eye contact entirely. Others stared with thinly veiled hostility. Inside the chamber, Reese stopped at the center platform. His crew stood silently. Behind him, he looked up at the council's high seats, each holding a representative from a different species. "This is not a request," Reese said evenly. "This is a reckoning, asterisk." He tapped the device again, and the hologram shifted, now showing a timeline. It began centuries ago, showing the destruction of Earth, the Council's declaration of humanity's extinction. Then it revealed secret archival footage. Council ships retreating from human colonies, leaving them defenseless. Gasps and angry murmurs erupted among the delegates. Some accused Reese of fabricating the evidence. Others recognized the insignias and ship IDs as genuine. Velkor tried to regain control of the room. "Captain Kalen, if you have grievances—" "We can." Reese raised his hand, cutting him off. "This is not about grievances. This is about justice. You will acknowledge what you did. You will guarantee the safety of all human worlds. And you will answer for the lives lost." One delegate, a scaled Rolfus warlord, slammed his clawed hand on the armrest. "And if we refuse?" He growled. Reese's eyes locked on him. "Then you will see why even the raiders feared the Deathworlders," he said. "And you will learn that what docked here today is not the only ship we command." Silence fell again, heavy and absolute. Reese stepped back, his gaze sweeping the chamber like a predator judging its prey. "You have until my ship finishes resupplying," he said. "After that, we act." The chamber doors closed behind him as he turned and walked out. The delegates sat frozen, knowing the galaxy had just shifted, and nothing would return to the way it was before. The forgotten debt, the council chamber, remained in uneasy silence. Long after Captain Reese Kalen left, delegates shifted in their seats, some avoiding eye contact, others glaring at each other, as if the weight of old crimes had just been dropped into their laps. Velkor remained standing, his gaze fixed on the closed doors. He knew the captain's words were more than a threat. They were a promise. The station's intelligence feeds began to flash with alerts. The Dauntless was not idle while docked. Its drones moved through the bay like silent insects, scanning, recording, mapping every inch of the station. Some council officers tried to block their paths, but the drones simply floated over there. Heads, ignoring all orders. The message was clear. We can see everything you hide. Inside a private chamber deep within the station. An emergency meeting began. Only the most senior council members attended. Velcor, the old Zorth admiral, a few war ministers, and a handful of diplomats who had served since before the border wars. On the table between them was a sealed archive drive. Its surface was etched with the council's highest security markings. Velcor placed it in the center and said quietly, "We can no longer deny it." The drive was unlocked with layered biometric codes, and the room's lights dimmed. Holographic. Files spilled into the air. The truth poured out, and it was worse than most had imagined. The record showed intercepted distress calls from human colonies, messages begging for help during the border wars. They were marked as received by Council fleets. But no rescue was ever sent. Instead, the orders were clear. Do not engage. Do not intervene. Let the Deathworlders burn themselves out. The old Zoroth admiral's claws scraped against the table. "I told them," he growled. "I told them." Leaving humans to die would haunt us. One diplomat's voice trembled. These orders? They came from the highest level, from the core systems themselves. But the archive revealed even darker truths. Several council factions had secretly benefited from the fall of human worlds. Resources stolen from abandoned colonies were funneled into the black markets. Advanced human tech was reverse engineered and sold to the highest bidder. Whole cities had been picked clean before raiders even arrived. The council hadn't just abandoned humanity. They had profited from its suffering. Velcor's voice was heavy. If Kalen learns the full extent, there will be no negotiation. The Zorth admiral met his gaze. He already knows enough, and if he doesn't, his AI will find it soon. Outside the chamber, whispers had already begun to spread among the station staff. Some security officers, especially those from frontier worlds, were quietly sympathetic to the humans. They admired the Dauntless for its precision, its discipline, its refusal to slaughter innocents. Others feared that if the humans won this standoff, the balance of power in the galaxy would shatter. Back on the Dauntless, Captain Kalen stood in the command center, watching streams of data scroll across the holodisplays. His cybernetic officer, Lieutenant Mara Voss, approached with a silent nod. "We've cracked the first layer of their archives," she reported. "It's worse than we thought. They didn't just abandon us. They sold us." Kellen's jaw tightened. "Good," he said coldly. "The more they fear the truth, the faster they'll move." Behind him, the giant armor-clad officer, Sergeant Holt, crossed his arms. "They're scared, sir. I can smell it." Kellen's gaze didn't leave the displays. Fear is a start, but fear without guilt only breeds defiance. We need them to know they owe us. At that moment, a priority channel from the station opened, unrequested. Velcor's voice came through, heavy with a tone that wasn't there before. "Captain Kalen, I need to meet with you privately." Kalen didn't smile, but there was a shift in his eyes. "They've found their conscience," he murmured. "Or they've found something they're afraid to lose." When Velcor entered the Dauntless, hours later, the docking bay was eerily silent. Human soldiers lined the walls, not moving, not speaking. Each one wore the same emblem as Kalen. Each one carried themselves like a veteran who had walked through fire and come out sharper. The air felt heavier here. Velcor could feel the difference between the Council's soldiers and these. There was no fear in their eyes, only focus. In the warship's command center, Kalen stood waiting. Velcor stepped forward and placed a small black case on the table between them. Inside was the sealed archive drive. "This," Velcor said, "is the truth the Council has, kept hidden for centuries. It will prove what you already know, and more." Kellen's gaze didn't soften. "You're not giving this out of guilt," he said. "You're giving it because you think it will buy you time." Velcor did not deny it. "Time is all I can offer." Captain, what you do with it will decide the fate of every world in this galaxy. Kalen picked up the drive for a moment. The two leaders locked eyes, one representing the system that betrayed, the other representing the people who survived it. We'll see, Kalen said quietly. Then he turned away. The conversation was over. Velcor left the Dauntless, knowing the next move was no longer his to make. Asterisk, the display of power the Dauntless undocked without a sound, its engines lit with a dim, ghostly blue, moving the massive ship away from the station's docks. No alarms sounded, no weapons were raised. The Council's forces knew better now, but there was a ripple of tension across every deck of the station. Everyone felt it. Something was coming. In the command center of the Dauntless, Captain Kalen stood before a holographic projection of the station's surrounding systems. His officers waited in silence. Kellen's voice was calm, almost cold. It's time they understand what's at stake, Lieutenant Maravos tapped. A command into the holoconsole, the projection shifted, revealing a glowing sphere, the Council's homeworld. Dozens of smaller icons appeared around it, each representing planetary defense platforms, fleets, and shield stations, the kind of defense network the galaxy considered impenetrable. Kellen's gaze didn't waver. Bring up the veil, he ordered. From the Dauntless's forward section, a pulse of light rippled outward. Expanding in a perfect sphere, it shimmered faintly in the void, almost invisible to the naked eye. Within seconds, the pulse had enveloped the entire Council homeworld. Every defense platform reported the same thing. Systems offline, shields collapsed, weapons silenced, engines dead, no explosions, no destruction, just a total, quiet shutdown. On the Council's homeworld itself, cities flickered with confusion as planetary defense grids went dark. Power was unaffected. Communications still worked, but every weapon in the system was useless. It was as if an invisible hand had wrapped around the planet and squeezed just enough to remind them who held it. In the station's council chamber, chaos erupted. Delegates shouted over each other, demanding to know what the humans had done. Velcor stared at the holographic feed in disbelief. You've shielded an entire planet, he said under his breath. No, the old Zoroff admiral corrected, his voice grim. They've caged it. Kellen's voice transmitted into the chamber without request. This is not an attack, he said evenly. This is a demonstration. The Dauntless is one ship, we have more. His words echoed in every corner of the station. If you choose war, remember this moment, and know that the next time, the cage will close for good. Asterisk. On the homeworld, people looked up at the sky and saw nothing unusual, but their leaders knew that every defense they had trusted for generations was gone. And the worst part was knowing the humans could give it back at any moment. That power didn't just threaten their fleets, it threatened their pride. Back aboard the Dauntless, Sergeant Holt stood beside Kalen, his heavy armor casting deep shadows under the bridge lights. They'll take this as humiliation, Holt said. They should, Kalen replied. They need to understand the difference between mercy and victory. The humans didn't keep the planet caged for long. After exactly 1 hour, the Dauntless released it. Defense systems came back online as if nothing had happened. But the psychological strike had already been made. The Council's greatest military asset had been rendered powerless without a single shot fired. In the chamber, some delegates sat pale and silent. Others tried to mask their fear with anger. A Rolfus warlord slammed his claws on the table. This is unacceptable. We should... He stopped when he saw the look in Velcor's eyes. Do you truly think you could stop them? Velcor asked quietly. Because I do not. The old Zoroff admiral finally spoke, his voice carrying across the chamber like a slow drumbeat. They've made their point. And if we are wise, we will not ask them to make it again. Back. On the Dauntless, Kalen watched the data feeds as the planet's systems reactivated. Mara approached, her golden cybernetic eyes scanning the reports. "They'll call this intimidation," she said. "It's truth," Kalen answered. "And truth only scares those who built their power on lies." He turned to his officers. "We've shown them mercy twice," he said. "Now let's see what they do with it." Asterisk. The final word. The Dauntless drifted back toward the station, silent as a shadow. Its black hole reflected only the faintest light from the nearby stars. Inside the council chamber, the delegates had finally stopped shouting. Now they simply watched the warship's slow approach. Each one knowing their words meant little compared to the will of the humans. Velcor stood at the center of the chamber, hands clasped behind his back. The old Zorth admiral remained beside him, his golden eyes locked on the display. "They've given us every chance," the admiral said quietly. "Now we either answer or live under their shadow forever." The chamber doors opened, and Captain Rhys Kalen walked in. He wore no helmet this time, only the black battle armor with the Earth emblem on his chest. Two of his officers followed, Lieutenant Mara Voss and Sergeant Holt. They moved without hesitation, their boots echoing against the polished floor. The sound alone was enough to make the air feel heavier. Kalen stopped at the center platform. His gaze swept the council seats, holding each delegate's eyes for a fraction longer than comfort allowed. When he finally spoke, his voice carried the weight of centuries. "You have seen what one ship can do," he said. "You have seen that we will not harm the innocent, but we will never again be ignored." No one interrupted him. Even the most defiant among them knew this was not the time to test his patience. Kalen tapped a small control on his wrist. The chamber's holographic projectors came to life. Images filled the air. Human colonies, thriving cities under strange suns, starships in massive shipyards, children playing under protective domes. And then, alongside those images, came others. Burned settlements, shattered space stations, mass graves under alien skies. "This is our history," Kalen said. "The life we built, and the price we paid when you turned your backs." Velcor shifted uncomfortably, but did not look away. The old Zoreth admiral's jaw tightened. But he too stayed silent. Kalen stepped closer to the center. "We will not ask for your permission to exist," he continued. "We will not beg for recognition. You will grant it because you know the cost of denying it." One delegate, trembling but brave enough to speak, asked, "And if we refuse?" Kellen's eyes locked on him. "Then your fleets will fade like the raiders who once hunted us. Your worlds will wake to find their skies empty, their defenses silent, and the galaxy will learn that the Deathworlders are patient, but never forgiving." The words were not shouted, yet they struck the chamber like a physical blow. He turned toward Velcor. "You gave me the truth," Kalen said. "I will return the favor. The humans you abandoned have not only survived, they have prepared, and this," he gestured toward the Dauntless visible through the viewport, "is only one of many." For a moment, the chamber was so silent that the hum of the station's power systems felt deafening. Finally, Velcor stepped forward. "In the name of the Galactic Council," he said slowly, "we acknowledge the sovereignty of Earth and all her colonies. We offer alliance. Not out of fear, but respect." Kalen studied him for a long moment. "Respect," he repeated, as if weighing the word. "We'll see if you understand what that means." Without another word, Kalen turned and walked out. Mara and Holt followed, their armor whispering against the polished floor. The chamber doors closed behind them with a final, echoing thud. From the viewport, the delegates watched the Dauntless drift away from the station. It did not leave quickly. It moved with deliberate, unhurried power, as if to remind them that it had no need to flee or hide when it was finally a dark shape against the stars. The comm system crackled one last time. Kellen's voice came through, calm and clear. This was only the first visit. Transmission ended. In the silence that followed, no one in the chamber could shake the same thought. The galaxy had just changed forever, and the humans had made sure they would never be forgotten again. Asterisk